Welcome back to another episode here on the Hard Hustle Podcast. Our next guest from Detroit to LA, Lena Wilson's 35-year journey has been breaking barriers in child welfare and building systematic change. So I ask you, Lena, first of all, welcome. But what made you stay in this work when everything around you said run?
First of all, thank you. Thank you for having me here. Staying in this work, it's a calling. It's my heart. I started off as a youth specialist, I want to say when I was like 19, 18, 19 years old. And I remember having this one kid, I will never forget this kid. I worked midnight shift. Every morning he woke up, he'd run to me, give me the biggest hug, and tell me how much he loved me and he was so happy to see me here. And all I could think is how is this precious little child in this system and not getting that same love and energy back. And so it just really forced me to find this journey of how I can make this change, how this little boy can get the love and the family that he needs and he desires. And that sparked my desire to work in this field. And no looking back, there's still little boys out there and little girls out there that still need this. And so I got to keep going, got to keep pushing.
I love that. I remember you telling me that. I think it was a 5-year-old little boy, if I'm not mistaken. But what does he teach you about love and resilience at that moment?
He taught me that it was no matter what he was going through, and he was going through a lot. He'd suffered a lot of
Hmm.
trauma, a lot of abuse, and a lot of neglect. He still had the capacity to love, right? And he
Yep.
still had the capacity. And in some ways, you saw hope. You saw hope from him. He was still hoping to get adopted. He was still hoping to have a family. And with everything that he'd been through, to still have that resilience and that hope, it's a life lesson to us all. I mean, it's just a lesson.
And you also mentioned Peter's lullaby. And why does it still haunt the system? Matter of fact, let's talk about Peter's lullaby for some people that may not know. And then, yeah, let us know why does it still haunt the system?
So Peter's Lullaby was written by a woman who actually she's passed on now. Had a organization called Big Family at one time, and her and her brother were in the system. And so what happened was they were being abused, neglected, and they were chained at one point into a bathroom. And she only knew her brother was alive because she could hear him singing, and so that's how she knew that he was still alive. At some point, unfortunately, the singing stopped. So she came to us and she did a presentation, and her presentation was she had a cup full of water, and she said every single time she moved, she poked a hole in the cup, and everything that she had inside of her was kind of just left and leaking out. And so I remember being a social worker and going, wow, how many kids have I moved, and has that been the effect that I've had on them? And so
Yeah.
that was a kind of a revelation that at some point you think you're just trying to do good, but are you doing more harm than good? And Jeannie Fowler was the one that wrote the book, and she was just had a very moving, big heart, and she was determined to change the system that ended up taking her brother away from her.
Yes, it's tough. I think I told you, I've heard stories. I mean, I'm adopted, so kind of understanding what that really looks like. And now being a father, I tell my wife, and she's like, "Why would you even say this?" But I tell my wife, I can never imagine leaving my kids. She's like, "Why do you say that?" I'm just because it happened to me. That's why I say that because I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me. But in reality, I do realize there's so many people go through so many mental issues, and they're fighting so many demons. And what do you think when we're talking about these young kids? Or what do we think about those parents that have also struggling and dealing with things? Because we've been in a space where mental health has not really been the forefront of our conversation until the pandemic time. And now we got young kids talking about mental health, which is great, but also kind of go into our adults. What is your thoughts on it?
I think it's a great time. I am happy to see mental health at the forefront, especially for children. I remember, those things that children weren't given the space in the room to have their own emotional health and needs. They were just kind of supposed to, lack of a better word, suck it up and move. How can a child's life be that bad? How can you as a child have mental health issues and needs,
Yeah.
that kind of support? But then that gets into this generational place where you perpetuate that same misinformation that as a child you don't have mental health needs. And then if you grow up not realizing that they're real and that they need to be addressed, you then as an adult can't conceptualize that it's real, that it actually needs to be addressed, and you pass that on to your children. I think the pandemic, for the good and the bad, did allow us to bring it at the forefront, but there's still so much work to be done. So much work to be done.
No, yeah, I do agree. And 'cause something that you just mentioned was I heard a mother, her young kid was saying, "I just feel like I have anxiety," or and kind of to what you said, the mom easily saying, "What do you mean? You don't even know what anxiety is." But this is someone sharing their feelings to the parent that is experiencing this and overlooking, someone's feelings. So that's exactly what the feelings are. What is your message to those individuals?
So my message to them is it's very interesting. As adults, we have sick days. We have days where we just can't show up for either we just don't feel like showing up for work or we don't feel like showing up for coworkers. And sometimes we don't show up for want to show up for family because we just are overwhelmed and overcapacitated. Our kids are the same way. I mean, the stressors that go on every day, and I used to give my kids mental health days when they wake up and be like, today, mom, I just can't, do it, right? It's the same pressure. It's just at a different level, and their young minds don't know how to conceptualize it and can't easily or deal with it as we can, or even know what label to put on it. They don't know it's anxiety, but they know they're feeling this thing inside of them that gives them this antsiness and they're scared and that they know those feelings, but they don't have proper names for it. And so that's why we need to be there as adults to help our kids identify those feelings and readily talk about them. Because the more that they can talk about them and identify them, the more they'll be able to conceptualize and know how to deal with it. I always just thought it was amazing that we as parents don't understand that. Like our kids go to school, there's tests, there's bullies at school, there's pressures every day, trying to be the best in class and get to college. That weighs on you, right?
Yeah.
And they need space sometimes to just take a break. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that because just like we need to take a break, they need to have a space to take a break as well.
Because then you will never understand your time and your worth.
No,
Right.
right.
I sit here. You just mentioned in that really reminds me of my mom was like, go to school on sick day, on a non-sick day, on a rainy day. Like this is me still having to walk to the bus stop. It didn't matter. Like I was going to go to school, and it's because she had to go to work, and there's all these kids. But when I sit here and think about it, yeah, and life was happening. I'm going through still sexual abuse. I'm going through adoptions, the unknowns, the whys. Never seeking a therapist in these moments, even though I had all these thoughts and questions, right? And it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of stress, and it's not for everybody. It breaks people. A lot. It puts people, sometimes leaves people in that certain spot because they just don't know how to move forward. So I love that you kind of tapped into it because it's so
Yeah.
huge. I know we mentioned a little earlier, starting off, that you're in the child welfare and building systems, systematic change, but talk about the organization you're with. I want people to know the organization, some of the services you offer. So just in case people want to know, where's Lena from? What is she doing?
So I'm from Vista Del Mar, Child and Family Services, and we're in LA, West LA, 18-acre campus. And I always say it's easier to say what we don't do than what we do because we do a little bit of everything. So we do foster care, we do adoption, we do prevention. We have a non-public school, and those are for kiddos and youth that need extra care and support going through the educational system. We have 3 residential treatment centers.
Wow.
Those work with kids. A lot of our kids in our residential treatment centers actually deal with CSEC behaviors and co-occurring substance use and mental health disorders. We actually run a CSEC program for youth, and we have a mobile crisis outreach team along with outpatient services. We also work with unaccompanied minors in one of our programs as well.
You ain't lying when you say a little bit of
A
everything.
little bit of everything. Full system, trying to build a full system of care. Right now, we're about to focus and open up a new substance use disorder program, outpatient services for kids. There's not a lot of institutions that understand co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders in children, specifically in youth. And then we're also expanding our work in the autism center and autism world.
Okay. And another interesting thing I remember about talking to you, Lena, is that you said you needed to go to law school because you needed more tools. Like
Yes.
when and where? How did you even have time?
So believe it or not, as a social worker, I spent a lot of time in court. Um, and I was in Detroit at the time, so I spent a lot of time in Wayne County Juvenile Court. And I realized being in the court system and working with families that that was the one area where families, you could come in as a whole family and leave not having your family at all, because there's this thing that the United States has called termination of parental rights. And
Mhm.
that terminates your rights from just not your parents, but from your entire family. You're no longer related to your entire family. So that means if you
Mm.
have a grandmother, she actually has to legally adopt you. sisters, brothers, all of that. You can lose that in the legal system. And what I was finding, even though I was a case manager for youth, I was still finding that the families would go in and they had no idea what their rights. Typical thing was, here's the allegations, plead no contest. You pled no contest, your kid still came into foster care. You didn't get a jury trial, you just went to inform a judge. Your attorney only saw you when you came in to hear your hearing and when he left. That told me how important understanding the legal system is in the child welfare and in human services, because the laws guide all of us in this process. There's laws for everything. The court system is heavily involved. And so I made it my mission at that point that I needed to make sure I was fully informed of the law and what that meant, and to make sure my families, I could advocate. There's two ways. Advocate is one, legally advocate and make sure I could pass on that knowledge to the families. So, because they deserve the best representation. And so in the middle of being a case manager and actually I was born my last year of law school, I actually went to law school and graduated law school.
Wow. I mean, that really goes to show. And I know people probably get tired. I say this every episode, but truly, where it says you're not in it for the paycheck, you're in it for the purpose. And for you, it's yeah. There were some challenging times. You mentioned, being that was your first child,
That
or
was my first child. So yeah, I was pregnant my last year of
oh
law
my
school,
God, you know what I
working full
mean?
time.
That's
And it was very interesting. I look back and I talk, my parents are both deceased, but both my parents are older when I was born. And so I had parents I was trying to take care of, a child, a baby on the way, and I'm in the middle of law school and working full time. And I look back now, I was like, I don't even know how this happened, but God, that's all I can say.
that's it.
Well,
Yeah,
I can just
thank
say but
God you got
God,
me through it.
because it makes no sense, but it happened. And, you know,
But you know what? That's usually what purpose looks like. It doesn't make any sense. I was talking to another a leader yesterday, and she mentioned, like, I was in the healthcare business, nowhere near a nonprofit. I get a random phone call all of a sudden. They're like, "Hey, we would love you to go run this organization." She's like, "Do you even know who I am and what I do?" Like, what do you mean? That's not my. And now she's 15 years in this organization. She's like, "Whatever. I'll just go to this meeting." And she said she sat in this room with a whole bunch of other people, and they're asking her questions. Like, I have no idea, but she said two. What should have only had been 15 minutes becomes a 2.5 hour conversation, and realizing that, oh my God, like maybe I actually know more of this and love this more than I know, and some people won't know until they do it. So kudos to you for actually doing it, but also understanding what you were doing it for,
yeah.
right? What the mission
Yeah.
was at the end of it all.
I think that
Um,
that story is really similar to mine. Like I said, I'm from Michigan, so when this opportunity interview came up, I was like, okay, what's the likelihood? First of all, it's a historically Jewish organization, been around for
mhm.
116 years. What's the likelihood they're going to hire a black woman from Michigan to come run a historically Jewish organization in LA, right? And it was that conversation where, I was very honest with the organization. When I was interviewing and talking about the strengths and sustainability. Sustainability was a big thing, and just was really saying, even if it's not me, here's where I think you should go. And I think
Yeah.
that was very much the reason why I ended up, kind of getting this position, because it was just sharing the knowledge that I knew just in general, whether I'm in Michigan or in LA, this is what sustainability looks like for an organization of your size and your breadth, and the work and the magnitude and the impact that you've had, um, in LA. So this is what I need you to do to stay around so you can continue to do that work. But it was
So
amazing
you
to
left Detroit
I love
to
Detroit.
go to LA.
Yeah.
Did you have the kids already?
So yeah, so the kids ended up coming, yeah, with me, right? I've been
Taking
here.
risks, risk taker.
I always tell this story and I say the same thing. I came at the perfect time. First CEO position, right? 2019, uh, June in 2019. I had all these plans. First thing, we got here in a month, there was two earthquakes, something I'd never had before in my entire life. And then March of 2020, the world shuts down for like 2 years. And so I'm navigating this new space with a pandemic, with
Oh
kids
my
that live on our
God.
campus, right? The highest intense residential setting, and just trying to make sure I keep the kids and the staff alive. And I was like, yeah, thanks, God. I appreciate this learning
Yeah.
opportunity. I really appreciate
And
this.
LA was intense
LA
during
was
COVID
intense.
time.
LA was intense. LA was very
Yeah.
intense.
I had a friend, and he would just tell me like the LA stories. And Florida, you would have thought we didn't even have COVID the way that we were operating. I'm pretty sure everybody in the world is looking at Florida like, what the hell y'all
What
got
is
going on
wrong?
here?
What is wrong? But yeah, LA was intense. I think, I mean, LA has 10 million people, right? So you had to think differently about
Mhm.
how in close contact that you are, and what does that look like for 10 million people. I will say it was the best time on 405 that I ever had because I could get anywhere that way in like 10
I can
minutes.
only imagine. I can imagine. Lena, like you say, you take on a role as CEO. What did you learn? Because I'm pretty sure you added leadership as you were entering, but I'm pretty sure there was also some things that you had to learn, right? You said this is your first CEO job. So what are you learning now as a CEO in this space? And
um,
and not only that, you're a woman of color. You mentioned, you're taking over. You're in kind of a community or an organization that probably you may be the only one. Maybe there's a few of you. So I can only imagine there were some challenges. What are you learning through all these experiences at once?
the first thing that I think you have to learn is faith and confidence in yourself. Not in a, I want to say, not in a cocky way, like you know it all, but you need to. I had to learn how to get over what's called like the imposter syndrome, like that worried about how am I presenting? Am I speaking eloquently enough? Do I have the right tools in my tool belt? They hired you for a reason. And getting over
Correct.
that imposter syndrome and just really having faith and confidence in what you know. And then if there's something you don't know, giving yourself grace and space to know that it's fine to learn and it's fine to seek out knowledge additionally as you're in this space, right? Um, and then learning that there's no matter what you do and decisions you make, there's unrealistic expectations that are always going to flow around you. And you've just got to get yourself in a headspace that this is the course of action. This is what I feel I'm doing it for. I feel this is the right reason. This is the judgment that I'm making, and I need to be forward. There's going to be people happy, there's going to be people unhappy. And just have faith that you're making those decisions. And be a good collaborator, right? You can't do this by yourself, right? There's 460 staff in my organization, and they are truly the stars because I could not care for all the children and families by myself personally without them there.
Yeah.
And realizing my staff are so valuable, and never ever underestimating staff's value, and always coming from a place of care and compassion for staff and those that we work for, and just showing up every day. And what does that look like? You know what? I have an idea of what compassion looks like. They might have a different idea of what compassion and caring look like, but trying to show up every day and give them what they need in the form of what it looks like. And knowing, you're going to stumble, you're going to make mistakes, and it's okay to say, oops, my bad, I made a mistake, and being comfortable with that. There's a sense of vulnerability that you have to learn to get used to as a leader that I think it's helpful. It's authentic, showing up with your authentic
Mhm.
self. And I think that's really what I've learned. I've learned how to show up with my authentic self, what vulnerability and leadership looks like, and then still having confidence in my decisions and bringing people along so that they can see the vision. Because without people seeing your vision, you're in that by yourself. So that's really what I've learned.
Hey, real quick, if you enjoying the podcast, we first want to say thank you. And we also just want to give you a little insight of what we're up to at Francis. Some don't even realize that we're working with organizations to help them use AI to create that real human communication experiences, where that's actually supporting your families, those patients, or the entire community. We're actually creating tech that connects. Check it out, francis.ai. We could break this down a lot, and I really want to sit here almost from a selfish perspective and really ask some questions, right? So you mentioned the imposter syndrome, the mindset, the having to overcome, the confidence. A lot of times it's so hard, and I'm always a big believer because I am in the space of coaching and consulting that that's like the thing. Go find you someone that can help you, or find a good mentor, or find a good maybe another CEO that you know, a good friend. What is your thoughts on it? Because I can imagine you're going through this. It wasn't that you did it alone, or did you?
No, I quickly realized, first of all, California, Michigan were so different in their systems, like just the system, the government, and county being a county ran system, and state that's huge is so different. And so I did, luckily, there were other CEOs. There was two other women CEOs, females, that had newly got promoted to the role, and there was another CEO, also a woman, who'd been in as a CEO for a very long time. And just the outreach that, and the embracing, and
I love that.
the ability to ask questions, and to call up someone and say, okay, this just came down, what are you doing about this,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
is invaluable, and we still do it today. I mean, there's been a lot of recent orders that have come out that has affected all of us as all of our organizations in the way in which we do business, and we've all had to at some point, for a while we were having 6:30 either crying sessions or this is how we're going to handle it sessions, all on the
Are these the
phone.
girls you went to with Paris to Paris?
Sorry. No,
Are these the girls?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay,
no,
okay.
no, no.
I'm about to say that's why y'all went to Paris because it
No,
was enough
no.
crying. Let me get some wine,
Yeah. So
now.
no. So we and it's so funny. There's one poor guy in our group. He's actually probably pretty lucky. His name's Jay, and Jay's just always along for our rides, and he's just always happy to be hanging out with us. I think there's like 6 women in Jay, and we're like,
That's
Jay, we don't know how
funny.
you got here, but we're happy you're here. But that kind of connection, um, I will never forget. I will never forget that I had a leader who was in the role, professional, had been in the role, and reached out to support me. And you could say, we're two totally different organizations. You could say we're competitors, but we're not, right? We're all in this work. We're trying to do it for the right
Mhm.
reason. And for someone to come out and embrace you in that way and give you their time and their support and their energy, I've got to pass that along.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pay that forward. It's our
I, that,
responsibility to pay it forward.
a couple of things on that is women empowerment, right? Like this is not woman knocking down woman. You see that
Yeah.
often. It's how do we continue to? It doesn't happen often that you see a woman at the head of the table. Why not more of that? And how do we get more of that? So you guys got to come together as women to make sure that you guys are knocking down these barriers. And clearly, you guys are doing it. Kudos to her or whoever it was that reached out to her, putting the pride aside, as you mentioned. We're not competition. It's how do we continue to make bigger impact? Sometimes it's collaboration. It's being able to share each other's visions and figure out what works for you, what works here. Let's go ahead and see how we can merge or how we can incorporate some of these things. So I definitely do love that. But also on the other side of things, as you're in that CEO role, because I find myself in a unique space where I'm president of an organization, but now I'm also seeing everyone want to come and drop ideas, their visions. Oh, I can help you here. I don't want to be part of the board, but maybe like a strategic advisor, or I could give you 5 hours of my time, but this is what I charge. So I'm pretty sure you're probably still experiencing. What do you say to leaders that are overwhelmed with that outside noise? Not just so much everyone pouring into them, but also the outside that's trying to sometimes steer in the wrong way.
That's a very good point that you make. You have to have a certain level of discernment, right? So that what I found most often is people that are authentically in my corner and genuine. It doesn't come with any strings attached. It comes with
Mm,
a very simple, oh, reach out to me if you need me anytime. I'm here for you. You follow up that offer, and they are there. They show up when they said they were going to show up. They help above and beyond, and they even check back in with you. There isn't, I only have 5 hours. There isn't, I'm going to charge you $25. There isn't any of that. It's just true, authentic, selfless giving to another individual and in another
mhm,
space. Um, and that's what you need. You need that one-on-one interaction that's
mhm.
authentic, human to human, right? And then there's groups out there. If you want to join a CEO group or a leadership group, then you do that, but you know what you're going to get out of it and what it's
Yeah.
worth, right? But you always have to have that one for real. I call it that one for real person. Two. If you have two for real people, that's even better. That one for real person that it's not about the money. It's not about what they can get out of you or the organization. It's just true, authentic partnership in just the most humanistic, basic level kind of way. Um,
Yeah.
and you give that back to them. In the end, you might feel like you're taking a lot from this person, but in the end, as you progress, this person's also going to come to you and like, hey, I have this new situation. I would really love to get your take on it. What do you think? And that's true. That's true partnership, and that's what you should look for it all the time.
I love that. Yes, I do agree. We need that person that is very just they're pouring and they're not here to take.
Right.
They see the vision or they respect you enough to say, "Hey, I love where you're going. I love what you're doing. How can I be of use?" Sometimes it's not being a board member. So, like I mentioned, I do have one person that when I started, he was an alumni like myself. I seen his vision, never asked for anything. It's how do we pour into you?
Yeah.
I don't have time to be on the board, but I'm here to strategically if you need me in the back pocket. But then when I had someone else, I had to really think to myself. And I think sometimes we have to be very mindful, of our space, because sometimes it could be those that are also trying to take us down,
Yes,
you know.
yes,
So
yes. You have
yeah,
to be
yeah,
careful
I
of
love.
you know, what kind of energy people pull out of you at that time.
Yeah.
And people that only pull and never pour back in, that's not a good sign, right? That's just not a good sign. That's not a true authentic relationship. And because we go through so much and you have such limited capacity when you're going. I mean, you have a family, you have kids, and everybody, you need to give a portion of yourself to all of those, right? And you got to be careful about what you outlay to others that aren't
Mhm.
going to help you move forward in that journey.
I felt that this organization made a great choice when they hired Lena, because I can tell by just having this conversation. And I know you had to work twice as good, speak probably twice as clearly just to be heard. How do you keep showing up? How do you lead authentically when the room doesn't even reflect you?
I have to remember my purpose, right? I'm not here. I'm, I can say, "Yay, I'm a leader. This is why I'm here." But my purpose is to make this world a better place than when I found it.
Mm,
My purpose here is to make sure children and families have access to services and that they have the opportunities that they need to thrive and move forward. So when you look back and you step back and you realize what your purpose is, and it's no longer about you, um, you can look around that room, but you know what your true purpose is. And no matter who's in that room, you're going to show up every day to make sure your purpose and your journey is fulfilled because it's about others. And
mhm.
I want one day, another Lena to not have to go through all these things, but just gets to show up and doesn't have to have, this kind of imposter syndrome because we've educated ourselves enough, made enough, went through enough barriers to know that you are enough. Um, and I say just remembering my why and my purpose, and it every just makes it easier to show up.
And what do you say to that young Lena? You mentioned, that next young leader. What do you say to that next, Lena, woman of color, stepping into leadership, that you clearly would pave the way for her, but she might experience some of these things as well?
I would say, one, the first thing is always remember your why, and it always has to be. I always think something greater than yourself is the most powerful tool that you can have because it allows you to extend yourself and know that there's something greater out there than you, and that's what you're working toward, right? So that's the first thing I would say to her.
Hmm.
I would say don't be discouraged. You Failure's fine. Don't be I say the biggest thing is don't be scared of failure. I mean, I think that's what we all are get hang us all up all the time. Or what if I'm not good enough? Or what if I don't do this right? Or what if I mess up? That's okay.
Back to that imposter syndrome,
Yeah,
right?
right.
That's the
If
imposter
you mess
syndrome.
up, you mess up. Get yourself back up. Say, "Oops, I messed up," and move along. Because that's life. You're gonna fall down. You're gonna mess up, and give yourself space and grace to do that, right? And learn from your mistakes. Like, okay, this wasn't the best idea this time around. I probably should have done something different, but don't let that deter you from still moving forward and trying something new. I would say that's the biggest thing, and
Okay.
surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with
Important.
with good people, um, and a good support system because you need that,
Yep.
right?
I'll tell you, Lena, people always ask, like, thinking about where my, background was and how I grew up. I always thank the friends that were in my corner, because, I was always authentically me, and they loved me for who I was, the good and the bad, and always wanted, sometimes even seeing better in me than I seen in myself. Like, how cool it is, hell. I think that's really what I loved about my wife, is that she's seen in me more than I've seen in myself at a young 20-year-old Efrain, right? She's seen the potential. She was speaking the potential. She was preying on this potential that she knew I had. So I do agree. Is finding people that are like-minded, not these yes men, not the people that are just there for the money, for the clout. Really, someone there because they truly see what you want to do, and they want to be a part of that. And how do we help you get there? I think it's so so
And
important.
I think,
Um,
your other point, don't have a yes man. You need that friend too that's going to say, you way out of pocket. Are you okay?
mhm.
Like that was, I don't know what happened right then, but
Hold
you
you
probably need
accountable.
to
Yeah, yeah.
redo that. You need that person that's honest with you, right? And it takes a special kind of friend. Like when I did my trip was when we went to Italy, it was with a friend that I've known for like 30 years. Like our kids grew up together, another friend that I knew for 15 years. And we're traveling around and we have the ability to say like you woke up on the wrong side of bed this morning. You need to like chill.
Yeah, those are good friends. Yeah.
Like, what is
Yeah, I
wrong with you today, right? And then pick it back up and still go,
still love
continue with
each
your
other. Yeah.
vacation and still love each other. It's fine. But you
Yeah.
need that's a real friendship. You need that friend who's like, nah, you're way off on that one.
I'll transition this to another friend of mine called ChatGPT. Matter of fact, it was my co-chef yesterday. I had to cook a brisket. My wife told me, every month we go and do meat shopping. So she says, "Hey, pick the meats." And as a young kid, I used to eat corned beef and white rice. So I seen a corned beef, and that's the first thing I seen is, oh, corned beef. Picked it up. It was a corned beef brisket. So briskets take forever to
I was gonna
cook.
say
Okay,
slow cooking there,
yeah,
slow
so it
cooking.
took 9
Yeah,
hours, and my
dinner
wife my
tomorrow.
wife was like, "It's your responsibility." So I'm sitting here and ChatGPT'd it throughout the whole thing, taking pictures of it. What does it look like? Did I season it well? Okay, cool. Do I? And I'm a big believer that in a space that we're in of nonprofits and organization helping others, that we want to do more of the things that we love and less of the things that we hate. Things that we hate, admin, repetitive tasks,
Right,
right?
right.
That just takes too much time. And a lot of organizations either fall behind, they're in line, or they're pushing it forward. Where do you guys kind of fall in line on the spectrum? Are you guys seeing AI as a beneficial to the organization, especially with all these different programs and services?
So it's really interesting that you say that AI is now coming into well, we have the Department of Mental Health here, and it's coming into the form of making sure you're using the correct language that will, for lack of a word, make sure that your services you're providing is billable, right? There's
Hmm.
keywords that you can use and that you can't use. And so they're using it more as a correction tool and saying, make sure that I've used all the proper language in this case note, that's still very individualized, but it's also something that fits the note or fits the billable service aspect as the
Hmm.
rules and procedures apply under, we have health here, CalAIM. I think too, we're using it kind of in a different way where you're looking at your financial tools and saying, you know, this took 5 people and 8 spreadsheets. Can I put this? Power BI is one of the things that I'm a big fan of. Can I put this in Power BI and make these wonderful dashboards and reports that I can visually see and that can drive my strategic vision, right? Those kind of things are important. So we are using it very carefully, though. Um, I want to make sure that you are not doing anyone disservice, by I'm a very much you can't like I don't know if you've seen lately. There's been attorneys that have been trying to chat GPT like their
Yep.
entire case law, and it's like not working out so well for them. So there needs to be some actual human interaction and research going on with that, right? I do appreciate it that where it took take 8 minutes to write a note, now you can do it in 5 minutes, or it takes those tasks that were 20 minutes or 30 minutes and it cuts them down to 15 because that's just more client time. That's more time that you can
Hmm.
spend actually doing those things with clients and doing the one-on-one personal work. So you're seeing it coming into this space,
Okay.
right? And
I
for
love
all
it.
of it, it has its great moments. It has some little scary things that are going on too, right? I'm not envying the task of any teacher now that has to figure out whether that student actually wrote that paper or chat GPT'd it. Don't even want to have that burden.
What's crazy is that at the school level, there, at least here in Central Florida, they blocked ChatGPT from the schools. So when I was trying to ask one of the administrators, why don't y'all use ChatGPT? And it's because it's blocked in the school. And I'm like, you telling me a kid is not going home to use ChatGPT? Like, let's be honest.
Fair.
They're in a generation now where that's their go-to.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to another leader that she said, I asked her the same question, are you using ChatGPT? And she says, I am. My daughter's teaching me. My daughter uses it for therapy. Like when you think of what kids are actually using it for and how they're using it, it's like when they told us we'll never carry a calculator in our pockets, but now we have a calculator in our
You have a
pockets. I
computer in
believe
our pockets.
ChatGPT. Correct. We do have a computer in our pocket now that you say that. But just to think about it, AI is already on your phone too. You
Yes.
can sit here and talk to AI on your phone, so you don't really need to go to ChatGPT. But I do love, as you mentioned, the things. I actually wrote it down. Did you say powered
Power
BAI? What did you say?
BI. Um,
Powered BI. I'm gonna look that one
Look
up.
that
I've never
up.
heard that
It
word ever.
is a beautiful way in which you can throw in information and data, and it can give you the best synopsis and pictures and graphs and visualize and tell
Love that.
you everything that you need to know. I was doing it with, we have some assessment tools, and I wanted to know what our client progress looks like, and those kind of things based on if they show up to therapy, are they making more
Mhm.
progress than those that call out? Like, what is the ratio of progress to those that show up versus and their scores? And it spit out this most beautiful colorized thing that tells me all the information that I need to know about the best outcomes, the days of the week, the therapists, all of that stuff in like one look, right? And so it's just a powerful tool, and you can make some good decisions based on that.
I'm so happy that you keep saying powerful tool because so many people, as we mentioned a little earlier, they live in fear when it comes to change. It's a little, discomforting when you have to, you've been doing the same thing over and over, and now you have to kind of make that transition. But it's there. The way that we transition to a computer, right,
Yep.
to internet.
Yep.
Remember AOL days,
Yes.
the no, and now all of a sudden we could just log in. And then we transitioned to social media when people thought that was going to be the end of the world and XYZ. And of course, there's still some bad in it, but there's also some good.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing so many people be able to monetize because of their creativeness. Organizations like yours, Lena, that can now exist and have the same platform as one of the biggest organizations out there, right? So
Right.
I love that we have almost the same playing field, and I think that that's what ChatGPT does. If you find, as you mentioned, the right AI tool, everyone's in the space of AI, and everyone's wanting to get a piece of the pie, but there's only those authentic ones that really care for what they're doing and wanting to see progress. So I love that you say resource tool. A lot of people don't say that. Instead, they get scared when we use the word AI. But it's been around for years. You know it.
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, we call it predictive analytics at one point. We've called it a lot of different things. It's just more at the
Yep.
forefront, right? Everybody's doing predictive analytics. That if you put this together with that together, you're probably going to get this outcome. And now this is a different, kind of a different way. It's been out for a while. Let's just put it that way. And it is, how you use it. You can. It's like
Mhm.
anything else. You can use it to do good, or you can use it to harm. And you just have to make sure that you understand there's two sides of the coin, and
Yep.
make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, trying to do the right things for the right reasons every day, and you can use tools like that if that's your premise.
I love it. What is your legacy that you're most proud of building Vista?
Oh my god, that's great. So I would say we are now an organization that has really moved from, this has been around for like 100 and, like I said, already 116 years. We are moving now from being a comfortable, kind of ran like a mom and pop shop, to understand our full breadth and depth of an organization and innovation, right? We're very comfortable doing the same things in the same way because that's what we knew. And I
Hmm.
see this level of excitement now with people when I say, I would say we've added probably 5 new programs since I've been here in since 2019.
That's
And at
good.
first I was seeing this, we don't do that. Oh my God, what is she doing? And now people come up and like, I just saw this great opportunity. What do you think? Should we do this? I think we can do it. And a lot of it was just that they didn't see the belief in themselves that they could actually kind of pivot and do this. And seeing the excitement about innovation and always wanting to be a thought leader, because that's where we are now. We were really, I think from our historical perspective, we were really quiet and kind of wanted to be kept the best known secret, keep our heads
Hmm.
down. I say now we're out there and we're like, no, we want to be a thought leader. We are at the forefront. And just that change as us as an organization has been great to see. And just enjoyable. It's nice. I see excitement in staff, and that's great.
That's always good. Yeah, that's always good. Because if you don't have that, it becomes even a little
Yeah.
harder. And you got to work it, like you mentioned. This is 5, 6 years in the making of really getting people on board to see your vision. Because at times they didn't see your vision, and I'm always okay with that. It's not your vision to see, but if you allow me to be the leader, I'll follow, I'll lead us to where we're at. But I just need you guys
Yeah.
on board. So and you've played that
I would say
part.
the biggest thing too is helping organizations like ours. And you say talking about being in the space, is financial acumen is huge, and no one wants to talk about it. Everyone's like, "Oh, you're making it like a business." Well, it is a business, unfortunately. I
It
know
is.
you don't want it to feel like a business, but it is a business. And if you don't understand that, you won't be around for another 116 years. You've got to understand there's a business aspect and there's a financial acumen that you have to know. And it doesn't mean you don't care about people. It doesn't mean you're trying to sacrifice people for the dollar. That's not it at all. You're just trying to you have to be good stewards, and realize that so that you can continue to serve. And there's now a better level of understanding that. Like when I first got here, my people didn't see, they didn't know, my VPs didn't know what a budget was. They're like, you want me to do what? I was like, I need you to manage your budget. And so, and it was like things like overhead's real. Like, yes, overhead is a real thing. And you need to
Yeah,
understand that what overhead means and that it's real. Um,
yeah.
and so I finally, I mean, they're on that path now, and now they're really like, I know how much this is going to cost me.
That's good that you say that because a lot of people don't realize. Yeah, it's called non-profit, but people think there's no profit. That there's no. It is a complete business. Is really what it is. It's just we now have to still have government in between, and we have a little bit more restrictions, and we got to kind of really follow this almost policy out there, right, between the for-profit and nonprofit may be a little bit different. So, and we go more instead of stakeholders, we have a whole board that we gotta kind of
Yeah.
uh, uh,
But
show up
and the
to.
same tools that we need to be successful, like we, it's hard out there. I would say one of the things like for our IT costs, right? We're competing with for profits, so it's you don't get oftentimes you're not going to get an IT director that's going to want to like I understand you're not for profit, so you don't have to pay me what the private sector is paying me out here. No, that you have to compete in that same way. And
Hmm.
so it's,
Yep.
it's interesting for people to understand that infrastructure, the infrastructure that it takes to run a not for profit is the same
Yep.
amount of infrastructure that it's going to take to run a for profit, and you've still got to find a way to fund that. And
And that hustle, that grit, the grind is still just like if you were starting your own business from
yeah,
nothing.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's
Where can
interesting.
people find you, Lena? As we start to close it up and wrap it up, where can people find you personally? Are you on LinkedIn? And just also for the socials for the organization, so people can take a look at what you guys are going on and maybe just kind of keep up if they're in the LA area.
So yes, so we are in on Instagram and Facebook. So it's just vistadelmar.org. You look us up, we're there. I am on LinkedIn under Lena Wilson. You can also find me at Lena Wilson at vistadelmar.org, first and last name. And if you have any questions, you're out here, you want to come see the organization, please feel free. We had 18 acres, believe it or not. Actually, just
That's
built a
crazy.
new theater, 299 seat theater, because we were really big into the performing arts for our students. And also now the community's using that to new soccer fields for our kids in the community. So
That's
definitely come
cool.
on out and
So in
check us
LA,
out.
is this? I'm not familiar too much with LA. I mean, I've been to LA, down, Hollywood area. How far from that area downtown where everyone's doing the walk of, the whole, which I thought was more pretty, by the way. And then I realized it's just little stars on a random
Yeah, it's
sidewalk.
not. You go. Yeah, that's how I thought too. I first came here. I was like, I'm going to Hollywood, and I was like, oh, this is dirty. Oh my god. So it's so funny you say how far. It depends on the time of day, right? So if
Got
you're
it.
not in rush hour, we're probably about a good 30 minutes from like the Hollywood area. If you're in the max back to rush hour, we're probably a good hour away. Everything,
Oh,
and that's
Jesus.
really funny. So, final story: I moved from Detroit, which you talk in miles. It's like 5 miles, 5 minutes. That's what you talk about. There is no distance matters not here. So I ended up moving to the valley, which is only 14 miles from work. But that means it was actually an hour and 15 minutes from work.
I hear you. I don't live in Orlando no more, but and it's not as bad as LA. But yeah, you could depending on the time. That always makes a difference. Depending if someone there was an accident on the highway, forget about it. Now it's 5 o'clock and there was an accident. I'm
No,
never getting
no,
home.
you're never
Like I
getting
just want to
home.
go
And we
home.
don't get rain
You be two
here,
exits away.
so people don't know how to drive in rain. So if it rains, it's just forget about it. Just like stay home.
Forget about it. Pull over. No, I appreciate you. It's been such a great, conversation. But I do have this last blind question. Are you excited and ready for it?
I'm excited, and ready for it.
All right. And you can rewrite the child welfare. Why am I struggling here? The welfare system from scratch. What's the one rule you never include again?
Termination of parental rights.
Oh, yeah, I
That should
agree.
not
And
be a thing. I can understand that perhaps kids aren't going to be able to be placed back with their parents, but terminating a
Mhm.
family, terminating a child from his entire family through a legal process, to me, makes no sense and is unacceptable. I should not lose my grandmother, my sisters, my brothers, my cousins, my aunts because of a legal process.
Almost like you had to start a whole new life.
Whole new life.
meet new people. You know what's so sad about that, actually, that you say that, is I have a friend now. She is 35 years old. When it comes to Thanksgiving, she's had to find her own family because she was in so many different foster homes. That last foster home, it's kind of like like a mom, but she doesn't even go there. That was just a foster mom. She was just there for a couple of years because there was so many different ones, and it's sad to know that, right? And now she had to do her own digging and searching and find out where's mom and where's cousins, and realizing, oh my God, I have family that's just an hour away,
Yeah,
two
yeah.
hours away. I never knew
Because
that,
once you have them,
right? So
those records are sealed, so you have no access to
yeah,
them. Your life, as you knew it from whatever time does not exist legally for you anymore.
yeah. When I asked the question, you didn't hesitate. Almost like we were playing Jeopardy. You said it so fast, and I know that it's has stuck with you over the years because you mentioned how early on in your career that's what you've seen, and to this day you still fight for it. So we definitely appreciate what you do, Miss Lena, for making the sacrifices you have to be a little young Detroit girl to then go into LA, into a whole new world, and take on a challenge that you've succeeded for the last 5, 6 years. So kudos to what you're doing, guys. These are the different leaders that we love to have here, and representation matters. So to see a black woman at the head of the table also makes me smile. So continue the hard work and making a difference when it comes to representation, because it does matter. Guys, if you are enjoying these conversations, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Don't forget that Lena, you can find her on LinkedIn. Make sure you guys follow them on social. My name's Efrain. This is Lena. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Latest.